Scott,
What?
episode 2!
Oh, God. Wait, they let us have microphones for a second one?
Well, I bought them on Amazon, so yes.
Okay.
We are back for Bored All the Time. Same Bat channel, same Bat family.
I'm a bat now?
Well, B-A-T-T. Bored All the Time.
Okay.
There it is.
Wow.
Yep. We're excited for this. I like the fact we come back, that we are continuing to do this. We just want to talk about board games.
We want to talk about board games. We want to talk about board games. We want to play board games. We want to bring more people onto the table to do this thing that we love doing so much.
What you been playing, man? What you got?
This one's going to surprise you.
Uh-huh.
Frosthaven, as will be probably the one that pops up the most right now because, of course, it's episodic, so I'm not going to talk that much about it. Besides that, I got to play Turing Machine. I can't beat the Automa system, but I do pretty well, actually. I do eventually figure it out.
I truly think that game is science fiction. It is crazy to me that it just works. No matter what inputs you have, it just works.
And it's beautiful. I love it.
It's fun. Because I would normally play it solo. And as a solo deduction puzzle, that's not the one I went to. I ended up liking Search for Planet X more. Another one that, as much as I love deduction, I am not good at racing a computer in deduction, is what I learned. Really, that's a good game, though. Really fascinating.
Search for Planet Earth is also an amazing game.
Oh.
That makes me want to play it more.
Have you tried Lost Species?
Not yet.
I've heard it's more board gamery because of the way everything develops on the board itself. I ended up getting rid of Planet X as well. I gave it to one of my friends who was absolutely in love with it. I don't like having apps in my games. It's specifically because the industry I work in, I spend 8 to 10 hours a day on a computer. And if I am playing board games, I want to have that face-to-face interaction. I want to actually be... I don't want to look at my phone.
I understand that.
I don't begrudge anybody that likes playing app games. It's not like they shouldn't be. They're ruining board games. They're not. Just for me, because of what I do for my daily living, I just don't want to... I just don't want to look at more devices.
Which is very, very valid. It obviously does not bother me.
Yeah. As far as my table...
Yeah, it's like I was sorry to say, what's on your table?
A lot of the solo challenge, I think I mentioned episode 1. I've been doing more of that. Cascadia it's been one of my favorite games for the past couple of years.
Such a nice game.
It's so easy to teach. It's so easy to play. It looks beautiful. The solo challenges in the back are like tough. Really tough. Those first couple I'd be like, oh yeah, these are easy, just like score a bunch of points, whatever. And then you get into like the mid-tier ones and you're like, oh, this really twists this game hard.
Cascadia, it's by AEG. Like they do
Flat Out Games and them.
Flat Out Games, yeah. They just do really good games really well, especially when they're in that simple, easy teach.
So I've not played Calico. I've heard Calico is very mind-burning. Like it is Cascadia in reverse.
I haven't brought over Calico?
No.
Oh, I'm a bad friend.
Well, we knew that.
Actually not. If you're going to give me an option, I'm picking Calico over Cascadia.
Really?
Okay. Oh, yeah. So, and Azul Queen's Garden, the fourth one, is like Calico on crack. Like it's even more. I love Calico.
Did you play Verdant, which is the third one in the series? Calico, Cascadia, Verdant.
I have not played Verdant.
I did not like it.
I don't know if I saw that one.
There's a lot of stuff that I wasn't a big fan of, and frankly, it's outside of the scope of our little segment right here. I think it's one of those of the series. You either get Calico or you get Cascadia. I really don't think Verdant has a place.
It doesn't look like anything I would gravitate towards.
It's the way the tableau development works is very strange because you have house plants that have to intermix with, I think it's face down cards. I forget how exactly it works, but you have to do this alternating 3x5 grid depending on what tiles are available. It's very random, but I love Cascadia.
Yeah, Cascadia, since that's what you actually were talking about.
Really been enjoying that. It's so easy to play a couple games in a row because it's 20 minutes. It's so good. A lot of On the Underground. I got the new Paris, New York set. I had that on my saved projects on Kickstarter for a very long time, and then it finally came out, then it funded, and then it took them. It wasn't a bad campaign. It wasn't a great Kickstarter campaign. Just post updates. Like they only posted as comments. It's very annoying. But the game is phenomenal.
Haven't played it. Don't even really know that much about it.
So On the Underground, the original came out in like 2005. I've never played the original. The remake of London/Berlin, Berlin was the new mode added on, or the new board added on, came out in 2020, I think. And then this one just came out. It just delivered like 2 months ago. And the gist of it is you are redesigning well-known world subway networks.
Okay.
And so you have the actual map in front of you, and then you are trying to kind of ticket to ride, point to point map development. But what makes the game really interesting is this passenger that, depending on the map and depending on how you connect stuff, will change a little bit. But he is trying to go to 1 or 2 stations each round, and whoever's lines he rides, they're the ones who score points.
Oh.
And the solo mode is one of the first times I learned about David Turtsey and how friggin' intelligent that guy is, because it's one of my absolute favorite solo modes in that the computer player, the Automa player, has a bank of points just at the beginning of the game. You start at 0 and they start at 20, 30, 50, whatever. And your goal is just overcome them. As soon as you match or go one beyond, you win the mode.
Oh, okay.
But you have to do it before the deck runs out.
Right.
And so it's really great. Really, really enjoy that. It's one of my absolute favorite games. I love the system. I will happily own both. I will happily recommend both. If you're only getting one or the other, honestly, you're good either way. They're both great. And then the other thing that I played a lot of is Bullet Heart, Star, Orange, whatever you want to call it. It's the level 99 production that is just a space shmup as a board game. It's wild to me how well that works. The main mode is a timed head-to-head competitive. It's good. It's, I will play it in that mode, but I will vastly prefer playing it cooperatively and or against the boss modes. Really fascinating puzzle game. It's a theme in a game that just frankly shouldn't work.
And I think if I remember correctly, I believe you have another expansion coming out this year with more characters.
Yes, there are 2 expansions. They should be hopefully delivering in June, I think. Bullet Paw, which is 4 new cat characters, well, 3 cats and then a promo cat that not a lot of people are able to get a hold of. I went way out of my way to get it because I adore this game. And then Bullet Palette is about like artists and creatives, where they've done some really cool stuff with artists, and they do all these artist series, and all the expansion Kickstarter updates have all this really great art in it. Yeah, if you like games like Galaga or Raiden or Death Smiles, that type of stuff, really great game.
Yeah, we played it. I enjoyed it. It was fun. I think that brings us to our topic of the week of how do we rate games?
Game ratings are really weird because they're just directly so subjective.
Yeah.
And I think we were talking about this and wanting to talk about it just to try to figure out like how we approach ratings and how we value them. I just use a strict 10-point scale. I don't do any halves. I don't do anything. Like, I just go off of how do I feel about this. My ratings certainly evolve, and they are my ratings for myself when I do stuff. They absolutely change over time, but they're more of a marker for myself than any kind of recommendational, like, hey, this game's an 8. It should be an 8 for you. I don't go off of that.
Yeah, I really feel that when I'm rating a game, it's basically I'm rating it up against itself, my likes, my dislikes, other games that are in its same mode. Like, so if I'm looking at worker placement games, where does this worker placement game stack up against this worker placement game?
That's actually an interesting point that when we were having our little pre-conversation, we didn't talk about. When you rate games, do you try to rate them in a vacuum, or is it directly compare and have the rating be weighted by other games?
When I'm doing my rating system, and this isn't gonna shock you when I say it. So we know that I do not like area control games.
I know.
So immediately, if I'm going to put it on a number scale, an area control game is immediately going to start at 3.
Okay.
3, 4. If we're going to put a number on it, it's how we're going to start rating low. Because I'm not probably going to enjoy it if area control is the majority of the mechanic. But when I sit there and I go, okay, I've played this area control game, I've played against this area control game, where does it fall? Does it do well enough that I will suffer and play it again? Does it do well enough that I'll be like, okay, yeah, I'll play this again. Like, I won't act like I'm suffering. I won't sit there and say, well, I guess. It won't be one of those things because it will have earned its place.
Sure.
Because also then it's also when it is one of those games that I don't normally like, if all of a sudden it does really well, like, it's a shock to me and it actually gets a rating that befits it. worker placement games are going to rate higher than area control games.
Sure.
Dice manipulation, they're rare, so sometimes I actually give them a little bit higher of a scoring in my own mind. But I typically match type to type.
Generally think of it as, if you look at the BGG scale, when you hover over the tooltip, that's really the way I look at it. If it is in the 8, 9, 10 category, 8s are, I love it, there's some issues, but I want to play it, I'll own it, no issues. 9s to me are, there's just something off about it, or there's something that I can't just push it over the edge and be like, this is, for me, is perfect. And then 10s are perfect, I will play them all the time, etc.
Right.
One of my favorite examples to talk about as a 9 is Dune Imperium, because on the whole it should be a 10 for me.
Right.
But because of the fact it's a deck building game, because of the fact your end game might just be screwed by bad draw, it doesn't happen often if you've built your deck and being aware of what your deck can put out through the course of the game, but it is very possible that you just might get screwed at the end. And that's, for as tight of a game as Dune Imperium is, that's enough to knock a full point off for me. The mid-range numbers, the 5s, 6s, 7s are, I'll play them to some degree. Where I think the interesting ones are the lows, because the only way I will rate a game a 1 is if it is broken. Like, if it will not function as a game, the rules are broken or whatever, like, it's just, it fails.
Yeah.
A 2 is a game that I absolutely hate, but I recognize it is a game. I just never want to touch it again. The 3s are mostly in the, like, okay, if I absolutely get pushed, I guess I will play it, but I would rather sit out. Like, I would much rather you guys play the game and not force me to sit there and do bad things about it. And 4s are those, like, it's not a game for me. I understand that it's a game for other people. Like, if you really need a person, I guess I'll play it, but I really don't want to.
Yeah. I just happened to hop on while you were talking, was my board game geek list, and was just like looking. I'm like, I don't think I rate that many games on that list. And I was like, what do I have that I've ranked low? And I was just looking at Octopus's Garden. Oh, I rated it a 1. I played this game and I was just like, I am dumber for playing it. And then like another one I rated low was Oceans. Just didn't care for it.
All right.
But yeah.
I think I'm pretty sure I gave it a 2, even though I hate every second of Lifeboats. I hate them both. They're miserable experiences for me. I don't like Take That. I don't like being mean in games. I don't like people being aggressively mean to me in games, especially in games that can be long. If it's a 10-15 minute game, I don't care.
Right.
As soon as you're at 45 minutes or longer and Lifeboats just drag. God, I hate those games. And they're 2 different games. They came out fairly close to each other, and they're very similar games. Like, even those that I absolutely detest, I don't give those a 1 because they function as games.
Right. It's just a personal preference. That's the reason why you don't like it.
When you rate things, even if you're not doing it on Board Game Geek or anything like that, do you keep a mental tally then of how you rate things, how you do that? Like, do your numbers affect recommendations for other people in any way?
Luckily, when I play games, my friends pick games that I really, really enjoy. So it's always like, I can go be objective. Be like, I had a good time playing this game. These are the parts that I liked about the game. I do not wish to own it, but these are the reasons why I enjoyed it. And if I know the person that I'm talking to, or if I'm gleaning information from them as to what they enjoy, it allows me to be able to make a decent recommendation. Unless we're dealing with my area control games, which I'm just like, do not ask. I flat out will go like, hey, what do you feel about this game? If I realize it's an area control game, I'm like, nope, don't ask me. I'm way too biased. I'm not going to give it a favorable recommendation, even if I had a decent time.
Sure.
Like, Scythe. Yeah, nope, I can't. It's a beautiful game. I can't give it a good rating. And I'm sure there'll be people that want to hang me out to dry because of that.
It's only my number 4 game. It's fine.
I mean, and you have questionable tastes. So there we go. Do we? Yes.
I find it useful for me personally when I'm making recommendations to have that kind of rough number in my head or something on BGG. And I've got a couple thousand games rated on BGG. I've played a lot of games. Last episode, we talked about World Wonders. A game that I was somewhat comparing it to in my head as we were talking about it was Barren Park. I know people really love Barren Park.
Yeah.
And I think it has that expanding aspect that Barren Park has. You have the kind of particular layouts that you want to do, you want to build in certain ways. So I think there's an argument for me where, as much as I love Phil Walker Harding, don't particularly like Barren Park.
Yeah.
So for me to sit there, and I think I rate Barren Park a 5 or a 6.
I have Barren Park currently as a 6.
And I would say World Wonders for me is probably a 7.
Yeah.
And so what I like to do with those numbers is be able to look back at them and realize, okay, this was my experience of the game. This is what I felt about it, how I would reapproach something being brought back to the table. But more importantly, being able to have somebody sit there and be like, you know, I really like Barren Park. Do you have a recommendation of something else that I might like? And there's certainly plenty of ways to go with tile placement, tile laying games that maybe World Wonders wouldn't be my first recommendation. But if I know the person well enough where I ask like, hey, what else do you want? Tile placement plus anything? Or do you just want tile placement? So I think that's really where a lot of my rating ideas come from. I do update my ratings over time, either as I think of them or if maybe I've played them again, they've fallen. I've certainly had games drop precipitously in the past. And then there are just ideas of like, if I can't remember anything of why I've rated a game, I'll actually clear my rating for it.
Oh, okay.
And I've cleared a bunch of ratings because I don't think it is helpful for me to call a game that I played 10 years ago a 3 when
it's been 10 years.
It's been 10 years. I'm a different person, different gameplay experiences, all the stuff. Welcome 2, the first time I played Welcome 2, pre-pandemic, certainly. And I gave it like a 4. It was fine. Didn't particularly care about it. We've talked about it in the past. Rolling rights are not my thing. Flipping rights are not my thing. I'm on like a renaissance of Welcome 2 right now. I would give it a strong 8. I'm really, really liking that game. Don't know why. Don't even know why I started playing it again. Because I gave it like a 4.
Well, heck, when I walked in here the other day, it was on your computer, and I was like, what on God's green earth are you doing playing that game? You don't like rolling rights.
I know. I mean, On Tour is just shared misery, the board game.
Oh, yeah, but at least everyone's suffering.
Exactly.
I still love that game, though.
Oh, yeah. Oh, it's amazing.
It's a great game.
That one got played so much during quarantine because I would just do all the cards and everything on Zoom. I had 2 computers. So I would line up all the cards on one camera, and then we would do it via there.
Nice.
Amazing game for remote play.
Huh,
but
wonder why I was never invited.
Because we didn't really get super close till 22. We were acquaintances.
We were friends and we were friendly, but yeah, no, it was after. It was definitely a pandemic where we're like, okay.
We need new people. No, that was not the reason for it.
No. I have to give you some grief.
It was Viticulture World. That's what it was. Man, you want to talk about just a genuine sweetheart? Mihir Shah, designer, one of the designers of Viticulture World.
At Gen Con.
I got to work an entire Gen Con with him, and this last one, I felt so bad. I really wanted to try his new game, and somehow it always got in the way of me being able to try it. Hopefully I run into him again this year. He's a super amazing guy.
When you were going back to talking about,
our
comparing
ratings,
our ratings and comparing stuff, I didn't even think about Barren Park being similar to World Wonders. But yeah, you're absolutely right. And I guess it's just my goldfish brain. And so, yeah, I guess I would definitely, but then again, as you talk about it, yes, I would rank this higher than Barren Park.
One other aspect of this, because I know that I've definitely done this on a couple of my favorite games, actually, on both Shakespeare and Raiders of the North Sea. Raiders has been in my top 10 since I played it. Shakespeare is in my top 25, I think. It's somewhere in there. It's phenomenal. Both of those games as base games, like Shakespeare is maybe a 6, maybe a 5, but you put in the backstage expansion. The backstage expansion's a 10. It boosts the game to a 9 for me. Like, I still have a few issues with Shakespeare, but that one expansion fixes everything for me.
Wow.
So how do you feel about, and I know the idea of are expansions good, necessary, all the things, that'll be a later conversation. But how do you feel about adjusting scores or recommending games? I think we talked about Tapestry last time too.
Yeah.
The more expansions Tapestry gets added into it, the higher my score, the easier the recommendation as a game, not as a purchase.
I think what you have to do is when you sit there and you look at the game as a whole, and just be honest. I'm going to rate this game a 5, and unfortunately, you need to buy this to make it this much better, and then you'll never get rid of it. You just have to be honest, because sometimes there are games that are exactly like that.
As we wind the conversation down, I think we've come to a clear understanding that we have purposes for our ratings. Are they useful? Is it something that if you're looking at the BGG ratings, and then you compare your own rating, like, is it worth quantifying this type of stuff?
I think, I'll be honest, I don't look at BGGA ratings. They're going to be looking at it very clinically. I don't know what their biases are. And I know that my rating system and how I rate stuff works for me.
Yeah.
And it is when a person comes up to me as a person who does get into this hobby, hey, what do you feel about this? Because I can look at how I've played games that are similar to it, how I feel about it. And of anything, it's going to do well for you as a consumer. And that ultimately, because this is not a cheap hobby, it is definitely a good idea to at least have your own rating system for yourself.
You're right. I don't look at the BGG ratings either, because especially on contentious games, there's so much just hate voting and anti-hate voting and all the silliness. Should Brass be number one on BGG? I don't know. I love it. I rated a 10. It's still in my top 30 games. There are games I rate 8s that I enjoy more.
Yeah.
Love the game. Don't know if it should be number one. But I think for me, it is useful to have the numbers so that way I know where I stand on something, but more so that way I know how to recommend things. I get asked a lot from a lot of different people about board games. And so knowing where I generally reflect on something, I think is useful for me so that way I can accurately recommend things for other people.
Yeah.
I will never just gut check rate a game. And if there's something like, maybe this play isn't the right one to recommend, I won't assign a score. Because I think if I'm going to rate a game, I need to have a reason for it. And I want those to be very clearly, explicitly explainable reasons. Terraforming Mars, I give it a 4. I think it's too long. I think it's too expensive for what it is. I think the quality of the game, the actual physical production quality, is not where it needs to be. There's a lot of good in it. But my experience with it, mixed with all these other things, like I am willing to have a conversation about my rating.
Right.
In a way that I don't want it to be some gut check, or I'm rating it a 10 because, well, it's this person, it has to be a 10 because other people are going to rate it a 0 and whatever. I like having that metric and that measurement for myself to be able to reflect on why do I have that and how can I recommend it to other people.
I know a lot of games, when they're done, I very quickly put them on like a pass-fail. Or still under review. You know, like some of those games is you get done and you're like, I don't know where I feel about this. I need to play it again.
Yeah.
And it's all personal. And ultimately, that's what your rating system needs to be. It has to be personal, just so that I don't usually rate a bunch of stuff for a stranger unless it's a game that I know and I love and I can tell a person why I love them. But going to you or any of our friend group, I can sit there and feel comfortable in the reasons why I like them. Now it brings us into the segment that we have lovingly dubbed Why Did I Play This? And this time it was my turn to bring a game to the table. And I happened to bring a game from Gap Closer Games, designer Gary Alaka, Rob Chu, and John Kang. Recently done, it hasn't been out in the world for very long, and that would be the 2023 game called Illiterati.
This is a great name.
What drew me to this game, first of all, was I had picked up this team's earlier game, which is Restaurant Rivals, which is a very fun, fast-paced dexterity game. And I was like wondering what were they going to come up with when they started talking about the Illiterati. And the premise of the game is such is that they want to basically keep the world dumb. And reading is a thing that keeps people educated and intelligent and allowing them to think of their own ideas. And in comes this group called the Illiterati that wants to destroy words and make it harder to be educated. You're picking random tiles out of a bag. Some of them have colors. Those colors correspond to theming of books. Everybody has a book that they're trying to complete. It was everything I wanted and more, because also the theming of your books, it also was an English thing, because sometimes it's like, oh, you have to come up with homophones. How often do I have to work on homophones? Or you have to use this many double letters. And you're just like, oh my gosh. And yeah. And this is a game that I have not played with you.
We have played.
Well, we played this game, but I mean, like, we haven't played a lot of word games, a lot of tile draw.
Yeah, I generally tend to dislike most word games because so many word games derive down into some pool of randomness. And this one has it in spades. You presented it to me. I'm like, okay, well, thank God it's co-op, because that's probably going to be the strike that saves it for me. And it is a fascinating balance of, hey, do you need that tile? Because I really need that tile. Because the thrust of it being you need to create certain words before certain things happen. But if you aren't careful, you're going to lose all your spares. And so having to build all these extra words that don't do anything beyond just keeping them alive. Because you only have, it's kind of Hanabi-like, and you only have like 2 or 3 letters that you can miss and then you're out.
Yeah.
I like it more than something like paperback or hardback.
Okay. I've got those as well.
Because again, I have the issue with the randomness there.
Right.
And I know those are deck building. Those are drafting too, correct?
Yeah, it's a drafting deck builder. Yeah.
Yeah, I wasn't a huge fan of those. I just generally have issues with word games because they're either going to reward the person who has the best vocabulary, which because of my background, I am normally in the upper echelon of that.
Yep.
I'm not always the best, but I can pull out a lot of words. I've played an enormous amount of Scrabble in my past.
Yep.
But inevitably, those types of games can make people feel dumb. And it's one of the reasons why I don't have a lot of word games. It's why I don't have a lot of deduction games in my collection, because I don't want somebody to come to my table, spend their time, and then walk away being like, well, glad I now know how he feels about me as a person. And that's not the case.
Yeah.
But it's very easy to get negative.
Yeah. The gameplay of this, just so that everyone understands, is that there is a blind draw bag. You draw 7 tiles. You pass that so everyone at the table has 7 tiles. You flip the timer over, everybody flips over their tiles, and you start creating words. Now, you do have a subject line that you are trying to accomplish. Like I was saying, homophones, or sometimes it's television characters. Like, it depends on what the subject of your book is.
Yep.
And they're just cards that flip over. The beautiful thing is you're just creating words. So the person who isn't as strong in their word vocabulary still can do and accomplish a lot as long as they know some words, because they'll be like, oh, do you need that letter? I can use that letter to store it. Because all you have to do before the time is out is make words.
And the nice thing, because it's co-op, is if you've already figured out your words, it's, hey, let me help you.
Yes.
So you're never flailing.
So once the time is done, the words that are created are held. You have a library that can hold so many letters over, and unfortunately, if your hold is full, then you start losing letters.
Yeah.
But then the illiterati attack, and they attack your words, and you lose tiles that way.
And there are some brutal hits you take.
Yes.
Where you don't even think about it, where all of a sudden, that 7-tile word you built, you only have 2 tiles left.
Yeah. And it's entirely possible. And when they attack, their attacks stack on each other. So, like, if the second time you get this one character, you do the new attack, and then you do the old attack. And so, yeah, it really can brutalize you. Yep. But the next round happens. You draw more tiles, and then you rearrange. The moment that you, as a person, have your words, you claim it, you throw it in the bag, you're done. Now you're just working on helping your fellow partners and still creating words to save the tiles. Once everybody has both of their cards filled, because there is 2 cards that you have to, then everybody works on one card.
One super card.
And one super card, and everybody has to accomplish it. And you can't turn anything in until everybody has it. It's just really well done. I feel it's really well balanced. Yes, there can be a moment when you get kind of hosed if a certain gets multiple cards out, but if the attacks get spread out, you're fine.
It's weird because the game is not long.
No.
But it feels very long to me. End of the day, I liked it more than I thought it would.
Yeah.
If somebody wanted to play it, if you want to throw it back on the table, I wouldn't turn it down.
Mm-hmm.
But I have a real hard time recommending it for just all my general issues with the genre. That said, because it is co-op, that's the one that if somebody's like, hey, give me a good word game, this is the one I'm probably recommending.
Yeah.
That timer stress can be a real thing for some people.
Mm-hmm.
And it is pretty clutch to have it. I can't imagine playing the game without it.
Yeah.
Because that pressure of needing to get your words and getting the extra words set off to the side is important. Like I said, I have some quibbles with the genre. I came out of it much more positive than I expected to.
Yeah. Yeah, you have to have that. You have to have that time stress. I think if that is too much for you, I would just sit there and say add a different timer.
You could do that
because I think it's either a minute timer or it's a 2-minute timer. Just add 30 seconds onto it. Use your phone.
Yeah, I was gonna say just use
a timer. Use a timer on your phone because then you're still having the time stress, but you've given yourself a little bit of a buffer.
Really excellent production. Really amazing.
The production is amazing.
The tiles feel so good.
Yeah, nice weight, nice heft, nice silk screening on them. The artwork's really, really cute.
It has a more rounded vibe than, and I mean that like physically more round than something like a Tim Fowers very sharp design. And they look just as sinister. If you told me that they were developed in conjunction with each other, I'd believe it. It feels like a game that Tim Fowers.
Yeah. What I think was a nice little bonus that was when I opened up the box, there was the leader of the illiterati was also turned into a chef for their earlier game, cool. Rival Restaurants.
That's very cool.
And so it's like, oh look, I can play the bad guy as he could be my chef. So illiterati by Gap Closer Games. be sure to check it out, especially if you're like me and you enjoy your word games.
Time for our weekly micro reviews. So my first one is called Virtual Revolution. Scott, you'd hate it. It is an area majority game.
I already hate it! Yay!
It is based on a movie of the same name. The designer of the game, Guy Roger Duvert, was the director of the movie. It is a cyberpunk future where people are choosing to live inside a digital universe. It's kind of like a Sword Art Online through the lens of Blade Runner. I did not know about the movie until I had pre-ordered the game for Gen Con last year, and I do like the game significantly more than I like the movie. The game is interesting because it has pretty sick player boards. They are very, very cool to use.
They look very pretty.
The production on the game is fairly strong. It's Studio H, it's Hachette. The gist of the game is that you are performing area control through Neo Paris and trying to build servers to host these worlds. They're called verses that people live in or spend the majority of their time in. It's almost there for me. One of the things that I have found that I dislike in games, and it's why we talked about Endless Winter. Don't know why I like it in Endless Winter, but I do. Where you have 3 rounds or 4 rounds where you have 3 actions apiece. That's the game. It's why I've stayed away from White Castle, from Devere, because I can't stand when a game only gives you 9 actions through the game. Give me something else. Like I don't want that much of an efficiency stress. I want to actually explore and do stuff. And one of the problems that Virtual Revolution has is the game board itself is not small on a amount of territories to control. So you are trying to strengthen your control within an area to build a server, to do stuff. But one of the actions that you can take is to just pull some influence from somebody else. What's frustrating is there's really no good way to pull somebody's influence and replace it with yours at the same time, which means most of the board, even though you may have influence on it, you're never going to look at, you're never going to touch it. You're just there. I appreciate the fact that somebody who is clearly not a game designer, he managed to come up with a very strong first draft. And I wish that they had refined that more to allow you more flexibility to make it so instead of, I don't remember the exact number, but we'll just call it 30 territories on the board. Instead of making it this only 7 of them are worthwhile, let me actually explore. Let me do more grand scale area majority, because end of the day, there's just not enough there. You just simply don't have enough actions to do what you need to do to keep the game interesting, especially on repeat plays. Excellent production, very pretty. They managed to integrate the theme of the movie better than the movie did. It's almost there. If the second edition of this came out, I would happily try it. As it stands, I think Virtual Revolution is just a trade. It's close, but area majority is one of those genres that it's just banger after banger after banger. And if you are not near perfect, there are just so many better options. And unfortunately, there are just better options than this one.
Yeah, that's too bad.
What are you bringing to the table, Guy?
A game I know that you know and love. It's going to be the easiest micro review of all because it's a genre you don't like, but you do like the game because I know you do because it's Railroad Inc.
I own every single piece of content for it.
I own most of the mini expansions. I have to go. I need to reassess because I know they'll probably be at Gen Con because I'm a completionist. I'll probably pick up the ones that I know I probably won't use as much, but I want those extra dice. It's just such a fun, easy 30-minute game. Maybe 30-minute game.
Yeah, I was going to say, you can get done
bang out 15. And it's a good solo game.
I essentially played exclusively solo. I have all the mini expansions, and I will tell you, almost to a box. One half of the dice are incredible, and the other half are just not very good. It's annoying because the ones that work really well work really, really well.
Yeah.
But the ones that are just like, meh. Probably the only just straight up bad set is the arcade set.
I think that was the first one I picked up too. If you guys somehow don't know Railroad Inc., you are rolling dice and filling in spots on your board to connect different sides of your map to the other sides of your map. You're trying to make towns and...
Yeah, you're developing a highway system and a rail transit system. And you're trying to get the two things to coexist.
Yeah.
In a way that is the most point bountiful as possible.
Yes.
It's really great. You're right. I don't generally like roll and writes. I really like them. Now, I will say of the 4 base sets, I feel like I am deeply in the minority here. I think Shining Yellow is the best. Really, really like the in-box challenges with Shining Yellow.
Gosh. I don't know. I can't sit there and say I have a favorite among them.
Fair.
I just enjoy them. I enjoy them all equally and separately. And
Have
actually,
you gotten to try the underground dice?
I haven't got to mess with the underground dice. Actually, I know which one I actually kind of enjoyed probably the most is honestly when you're messing around with the volcano.
See, red is my least favorite. And there's a couple, I think one of the destruction dice is in the arcade as well. I don't like the ones that blow stuff up.
Which I understand.
I mean, it makes sense for me.
It does make sense for you. Railroad Inc. It's not an expensive game.
And it's one, I have played it on airplanes. I have played it in hotels. I have played it on side tables. You need very little space for it.
Oh, yeah.
I really recommend the underground expansion because it takes this light, kind of fluffy roll and write game, and it's brain breaking because you are now playing, I think it's an 8-round game with that, and you are playing on 2 map boards at the same time.
Yeah.
One is the upper and the other is the underground. Based on where you actually place things, you can start breaking stuff in the underground map. So you have to be really careful. Makes the game a lot longer. It's a lot thinkier, but easily one of my favorite ways to play the game.
That's really interesting to know because it doesn't take a lot of thinky for Railroad Inc.
Yeah, it doesn't.
But yeah, Railroad Inc. very much is a shelf.
100%.
That is gonna
Not
that
even
will,
an argument.
That's gonna stay.
Yep. Normally, we each have 2 games to talk about during our table shelf trade discussions. Scott and I, in this episode, chose to speak about the same game, the name of which I am not going to mention right now, for our second entry. That discussion ran for 18 minutes before edits. We've decided to pull that discussion, for now, because we want to experiment with the game more before we release such broadly negative comments. I'm sure that we will end up discussing again in the future, or we'll simply release the conversation we already recorded if our opinions don't drastically change. In the meantime, thank you for sticking with us. Know that this will not be a repeat occurrence. As we have recorded about a half dozen more episodes already, I can confirm that it hasn't so far. But because this game is so important to us, we felt this was the best course of action for only being episode 2. Now on with the rest of the episode. Scott.
What?
The point of this particular rotating segment is just talk about games we're excited about. This doesn't necessarily have to be something that is a Kickstarter campaign coming. This could be a pre-order. This could be something that we just have been sitting on and we want to try. My games for this, normally we're doing one. I have a very sad, honestly, reason to mention the second one, but I do want to mention the second one. This is just for us to talk about something we're excited about.
It's nice to have things to look forward to. The thing I'm looking forward to is by Roxley. In fact, I just got it a week and a half ago. I kickstarted it. I love Roxley, and it's their new game called Skyrise.
I was very happy when you backed this, so I didn't have to.
We do this a lot where we have these games where we're like, oh, good, you did it. I don't have to. Premise of the game is, hey, we can't build on the land. Take it to the air. Let's just start with the inside the lid. Gorgeous artwork. Clearly have my copy. I dig it that it's got form-fitting.
That is a cool component.
Oh, yeah. That was part of my Kickstarter. So there was a Kickstarter.
Big chunky metal key.
Big chunky metal key. Looking at, think of it a little bit futuristic, but it's still like retro 1920s style buildings and coloring. It's an auction game, which I don't have a ton of auction style games.
I think I like auction much more than you do.
Probably.
So I'm very surprised that you were the one that went for this instead of me.
I think it was the theming.
That's fair.
I like its retro feel.
It's very strong in the World's Fair 1900s.
Yes. I don't have a lot of games like this. And so it just sang at me. And I love the fact that the board of it is just literally the ground that's underneath you as you build on top of it. I've just been waiting. It's just, I don't know why it sings so much. It's the artwork. It's the style. It's a game type I don't have. I mean, they've got stories based on people. Yeah. And then actually they talk a little bit about Gertrude Stein. They actually bring in the history of Gertrude Stein. They gilded part of the box. It's got texture and gilding, and I'm just they really just went all in on the theming. That's near future. What are your future table bringings?
We're going to stay in the happy part right now, and we're going to also go with the massively overly fancy, incredible production.
I've seen this game.
I have already gotten to play it. I am talking specifically about its expansion.
Oh, okay.
The game is Veiled Fate. Roxley is the king of production. Stonemeyer's very high up.
Oh, yeah.
I think Ivy Studios is second only to Roxley. And they say it in their campaigns, luxury deluxe is their standard. And Veiled Fate is a absolutely wild game. They called it strategic deduction. I don't know how to elevator pitch this game because you are doing some hidden role, like social deduction stuff, but the entire jump of the game is to try and get other people to get you your points, because you never, as soon as somebody knows who you are, you're out, because people will just tank your character.
Okay.
There are more characters on the board than there are players, so there's always some level of question of, why is Clar not moving? Maybe it's because they're not moving him, maybe it's because it's nobody's character and it doesn't matter.
Right.
Beautiful production. There are a few issues I have with the gameplay, especially in the higher player count, uneven numbers. Essentially, if you are the lone person in a 7-player game, it's going to be really, really hard for you to win, because everybody else is on a team. Everybody else is on a team except for you.
Okay.
And while you don't know who your partners are, if you're watching the table, you can figure that out. And so you only have one person looking out for your interests. There's a few things like that. The expansion Tribunal, which I am frothing to get, does a lot of modular extras. One of them being, hey, instead of being the off player, you're just going to have a specific role. So now, instead of playing and actually having one of the demis on the board, you are just trying to figure out who everybody else is. And if you guess 70% of the people, you win instead.
Okay.
So it's something that I found with Moonrakers, that the base game is very strong. And there were a few high issues I had with the game that the expansions corrected every single one.
Okay.
And watching the Tribunal gameplay videos, they have fixed every issue I have with the game and allow it to still be big and ridiculous and beautiful. I really want to try this game with 2 players. I actually was planning on pulling it to play with you. The interaction between players is so good for how basic the actions are. The actions are essentially move a guy. That's about it.
Okay.
But depending on which guy you move, where you move them, and the card you play when you move them. Like I said, I don't know how to elevator pitch this game, but it is incredible, and I cannot wait for Tribune.
That sounds very interesting.
Stomeyer's booth was cat-a-corner to IV's booth. And I went over there on the first day. I'm like, just give me Veil Fate. I need Veil Fate. And talked to Austin, and he was very pleasant about it. And took it back to my hotel room that night, cracked it open. I'm like, I didn't pay for this. Because if you notice, I have the metal version.
Yeah, you do.
I only paid for the plastic version. I got the metal version.
Oops.
So I don't know if he did that on purpose or if he just grabbed from the wrong stack, but I absolutely adore the game. It's really great.
They're very pretty. But you have a second game there, I see.
I do.
And why do you have a face?
I have a face because...
Not a good thing?
No, it's not a good thing.
Oh no, because I think I have that game.
So Wizards and Relics came out in 2020? 21? I spent a lot of time with the base game and really became very, very good friends with one of my friends now because of Wizards and Relic. It's a simple, quick playing head-to-head dueling game where on your turn you're going to play a wizard and you're going to play a relic. And whoever has the higher total is going to win the round.
Yeah.
And there's a really neat self-balancing kind of catch-up mechanic of you are only allowed to have so many cards in hand. For each wizard that you have put in your Hall of Fame, basically each round you've won, your maximum hand size is decreased.
Oh, okay.
So your opponents start getting more options, and now the cards that you are choosing to keep become much more important. And when you win a round, you actually have the ability to take one of the cards from your opponent that they won with.
Okay.
So really neat, basic little idea. A lot of fun, teach it to a lot of people. The art is all hand done by the designer Mike Briegel, that we lovingly refer to as Wizard Briggs. You are currently messing around with a copy of Awakening. This is one of the final retails of it that I got early. There was some production stuff going on. It got delayed, and he sent out some prototype copies. There was the one retail ready that I ended up getting. I have my copy of Awakening. I've played with Awakening. It is produced. It is, as far as I know, it is in country. I think I'm the only one outside of his group that has a final retail copy right now.
Oh.
I also do not know how long it'll be before anybody else gets it, because unfortunately Mike passed away on April 28th.
Oh my
God.
God.
I talked to him months ago that, hey, I'm gonna, we're gonna be doing this podcast. I really want to talk about you. I really want to mention your game. I really like it. All the things. And he said, that'd be great. I'd love to hear it. All that. The January Kickstarter update said, hey, he has stage 4 stomach cancer, and he's not going to be defined by it, but It's a reality of what we're going through. And so I watched through Carebridge and some other stuff, what was going on with him. And he got to go home. I've been Facebook friends with him since the original one because he actually knows one of my wife's friends and has met my wife. I've never actually got to meet him, but I've had many conversations with him. Yeah. And he went home in March, and it looked like things were going to get better, and then they didn't. So I wanted to bring it up, both because I told him I was going to, and I wanted to talk about him, and I really wanted to thank him for getting me a copy of this early, but also just to memorialize the guy. Again, I never got to physically meet him, but he was one of the just most genuine and loving people I've ever communicated. Like you watch the outpouring of love for this guy on all these obituaries and everything. He's just, it sucks. Like it's a real shame because we are being family friendly with our language on here. Otherwise I would have much stronger words. So yeah, if you see a copy of it, his publishing name was Eternal Realms. Wizards and Relics is great. Awakening is a lot of fun. The 2 sets mix and match. It's just, it sucks. So.
Oh. I was sitting there going like, I've played the first one. Why is this one? I was like, oh no, it's gonna get a bad review. Oh no, it's worse than that.
It's a lot of fun. Like, independently of what happened to him, I had a lot of fun playing with this set.
Well, thank you for making your games. Sorry that you're no longer with us, and yeah.
Bummer note. Well, now that we had a small breather after recording that last segment, we're going to wrap up for the day.
Board All the Time, this podcast is locally produced under the Theater Geeks Entertainment LLC. We are locally owned and operated, and we'd like to thank our sponsors. Those sponsors happen to be Robin's Nerd Supplies, is a place where you can get your supplies for dice and gaming accessories. They were founded in 2018. If you go to robinsnerdsupplies.com and enter Theater Geeks, that's TheaterGeeks, in the discount code, you can save up to 10% on your order. Super excited to be starting to work with them. And they'll be especially doing more on our Twitch channel,
where you should see this handsome face show up a little more often.
And then Eco Owl Press, which is a local union member printing company here in the South Bend area. They are celebrating 10 years in business. Their aim is to fulfill your printing needs while remaining green for our planet. So check them out at ecoowlpress.com. And if you want to contact us, you've got our email address for the podcast.
boardallthetimegaming@gmail.com.
Also, theatergdws@gmail.com. If you want to contact me, you know what? I'm bored of you.
Let's go play some games.
Let's go play some games.